I'm Matt at Nexus Baseball, and this is episode 42 of the Tommy John Epidemic. This series is a YouTube read of content from the book Plague of the Gods, an outsider's perspective on baseball's Tommy John Epidemic, which is available now on Amazon. I decided to put this content on YouTube to make the material as accessible as possible. This series examines the science behind the most superhuman action the human body can produce, accelerating a baseball up to 100 miles per hour. The temptation for a novice pitcher is usually to grip the ball too firmly with the flexor muscles in the forearm and using the pull of the forearm to throw the ball. It is so ingrained as there is a natural inclination from other gripping activities to want to keep a firm grip on an object in the hand. In a safe pitching kinetic chain, it should be the extensor muscles laying the ball back and protecting the elbow instead. These extensors are also used to grip the ball by pulling back on it in a motion like revving a motorcycle using the pointer and middle fingers. This utilizes these muscles while keeping a grip on the ball. The grip can be light or firm depending on the desired result. The harder the grip pulling back on the ball, the greater the backspin on the fastball, but at the sacrifice of a reduction in absolute velocity. This is due to a greater amount of contact with the baseball seams for a longer period, as well as a release slightly after the peak of the centrifugal motion of the arm from acceleration to deceleration. When throwing a pitch, the spin rate of the ball, or the number of revolutions of backwards or forward spin it achieves, is primarily determined by this grip level. The spin rate of the baseball determines how much lift it has, or its ability to fight the drop of gravity due to the Magnus effect. The Magnus effect applies to spinning objects in a fluid, in our case, air. The effect occurs due to Newton's third law and describes that air on the top of the fastball with backspin is pulled more quickly by the rotation of the baseball backwards, over the top of the baseball and downwards behind it. When the faster moving air is pushed downwards, the spinning energy of the ball is converted into force against the slower moving air. This force against the slower moving air creates an equal and opposite push force against the baseball, pushing it in an upward direction and creating lift. This force allows the ball to fall more slowly than it normally would be due to gravity and achieve a more level flight to the target. With topspin, the reverse of backspin is created, with the Magnus effect pushing the ball downward at a rate faster than gravity would be able to achieve, as in a curveball. Sidespin works in the same manner, but the force is lateral, as in the slider. The greater the spin rate of the ball, the greater the effect, as more force is generated in the direction of the spin. In the fastball, this backspin deceives the hitter by not dropping at the rate the eye would expect given the influence of gravity. The two-seam fastball or sinking fastball produces low backspin by comparison and falls closest to the speed of gravity. If thrown correctly, it can also be the fastest fastball out of the hand, due to most of the energy being imparted directly into the apex of the throw and not being bled off into spin rate. Blake Trinan, for example, utilizes this pitch to great effect, with high velocity out of the hand. The direction of the raised seams on the baseball in this pitch also creates additional drag on the ball, magnifying this effect but decreases its speed more quickly on the way to the plate. Four-seam fastballs, called such because as the ball spins, four individual seams can be seen in slow motion, is the pitch capable of the highest backspin by hooking the seams. The pitch can have higher or lower backspin based on how firmly it is gripped. The high backspin tricks the batter by causing the ball to resist dropping as the batter tracks its path, appearing to them as if it rises. This is an optical illusion, as the brain is programmed to understand the effects of gravity intuitively. It is also a challenging pitch to square up if thrown high in the strike zone, as the spin is directly opposite to the spin the batter is hoping to achieve to hit the ball the greatest distance, their own backspin relative to their own orientation. It therefore requires the whole spin rate to stop in one direction and begin again in another. If the ball is mishit, a foul backwards is highly likely if the spin rate of the ball isn't nullified. Likewise, the higher the spin rate, the greater the energy that is required to nullify that spin rate by the bat, making the pitch more likely to result in a fly ball rather than a home run. Aroldis Chapman's mighty fastball has both some of the best speed in MLB, but also the best fastball spin rate. The result is a pitch much less likely to be hit for a home run. In fact, spin rate in modern baseball is one of the key factors in evaluating a pitcher due to spin having been shown to have an equal or greater impact on pitch effectiveness than velocity in many cases. A component of the spin imparted to the baseball is also a factor of how far it is held in the hand. Returning for a moment to the discussion from the prior chapter of the arm as a propeller blade into release, the further the tip of the propeller is from the hub, the greater the tip speed will be. If a pitcher holds a ball lightly as far from the palm as possible, the greater the velocity will be by default due to this effect. The closer the ball is to the heel of the hand, the more slowly it will travel. This difference can result in several miles per hour lost or gained just due to distance. The trade-off is that, as described, the further the ball is away from the palm, the less the fingers can interact with the ball due to reduced grip strength. Additionally, the wider the fingers are on the baseball, the less grip on the baseball, and therefore the lower the spin rate will be. The most extreme example of this is the split-finger fastball that almost tumbles out of the hand with minimal backspin. This being the case, what is the optimal grip for the pointer and middle fingers on the baseball, knowing that it should be gripped by the extensors? This is dependent on the size of the pitcher's hands and the intended effect. If the pitcher is looking to induce ground balls, for example, they would hold the ball loosely and out in the hand to not over-exaggerate spin while maximizing velocity. In the case of the four-seam fastball, the ideal grip is the fingers as narrow as possible while maintaining control, and the ball as far away from the palm as allowable without compromising grip strength. This will maximize both velocity and spin rate. Although this looks at the grip using the pointer and middle fingers, the other portions of the equation on the fastball are the ring and little fingers as well as the thumb. The ring and little fingers serve as stabilizers for the baseball, allowing the two primary fingers to pull back on and exert maximum force. They too should be pulling back using the extensors and should be directly on the side of the baseball and not curled inwards. This is another source of potential elbow trouble, as if the flexors would be pulling these fingers in while the extensors are pulling back with the fingers on the baseball, the arm again is attempting to flex in two different directions. By instead being directly on the side of the ball, they assist the grip strength of the other two finger extensors while maintaining minimal contact with the baseball, just enough to stop it from sliding away in their direction, as they are in a position directly opposite of the arm path. The most important component in this system, and the part most varied, is the role of the thumb. In the classic fastball grip, the thumb rests extended directly below the middle finger. In this manner, it is a stopper, designed to be a release trigger for the baseball. Some pitchers have it on the side of the baseball, off angle somewhere, or tucked under the baseball. The amount of pressure provided by the thumb is in large part relative to the pressure of the extensors to keep the ball in position. If the thumb is used to release the ball at or near the apex of the throw by removing pressure, some degree of spin is lost, and the timing of such release becomes extremely critical. The better method is to have the apex of the centrifuge rip the ball out of the hand to maximize pressure, and therefore spin rate as well as velocity. The optimal way to accomplish this is with a tucked or crossed thumb. This technique is utilized by most of the high spin rate fastball pitchers in the major leagues, as the pitcher does not make the conscious decision to release the baseball, but instead throws with such force that the ball is ejected from the hand at the apex, while the fingers pulling back cause the spin to be imparted. The pressure from the thumb therefore must be individually determined to maximize this effect. Join me for episode 43 next week. Remember, if you like the content, please like and subscribe. Your support makes this work possible. Also, if you want to jump ahead, please consider picking up the book on Amazon from the link in the description below. See you next week.